Raptors weekly podcast for the week of April the 11th. The playoffs are just around the corner. And the Raptors have about 2 games left, and we still don't know who we're going to play. It's going to be either Detroit or Indiana. Yeah, that's really the only question that's left of the season. And, of course, how healthy is DeMar Carroll? Is Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan ready to step up in the playoffs? Or will the Raptors finally win a first-round series? And a host of other questions, including Dwayne Casey's future, and a lot more is on the line in these playoffs. We can't cover it all, but we'll try our best. And let me introduce the panel of guests today. It's Andrew Thompson. Did I get that T right? Did I get it? Yeah.
You did it! Wow.
I thought after a couple of years of doing this, I may as well give it a real college try, and I nailed it, apparently.
You nailed it. Way to land one of the most common English names that there are. You did it, man.
Commonly spelled, but commonly mispronounced as well.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And also joining us from the backwaters of Etobicoke is William Liu.
Welcome from the confines of my parents' basement. I'm peak blogger right now.
Chris, we're recording actually in the middle of the Raptors versus Knicks game. That's how much this game means to us because we just don't give a shit who wins, really. The Raptors have a lead here. DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry are on the bench right now. They're up at 10, I think. Let's check the exact score to give the listener an update. 75-69 is what the score is right now with the fourth quarter just starting. Guys, let's start with DeMar Carroll. He's the big news of the week. He returned from a long layoff and finally played a game against his former team Atlanta and fared pretty well. Will, as someone who vigorously takes notes during games, screenshots them and then posts them on Twitter, what did you make of DeMar Carroll's return?
That's right, guys. Please check out my notes on Twitter at William_Lou. Yeah, look, I thought DeMar Carroll looked pretty solid in 14 minutes of returning. He got 4 steals. He played 2 positions. He played split his time between small forward and power forward. Thought he looked great. I thought the activity wasn't fully there, but I think that conditioning is something that you would expect him to take some time to come back from fully. But in terms of how he could have expected to be looked, after missing 3 months, he looked pretty solid. He stonewalled Paul Millsap in the post twice. It's nice, and Dwayne Casey tried him in a couple of lineups. Yeah, he looks solid, and he took the next game off. I can't remember which one it was, but he took it off, and now he's back with the next game, and he had a solid stint there too. So looks like he'll be with the bench unit for a while, but so far pretty solid.
Andrew, all positive on your end on the DeMar Carroll early injury return analysis?
Yeah, like he didn't look super comfortable, which I mean it makes sense for a guy coming back off of that kind of an absence. But what he did look he looked comfortably athletic. Like I was, especially after the speculation whether or not he would come back this year at all, and the series of injuries, and you're worried that he would come back and look like he was still kind of visibly playing at 70% or not quite fully healed. And whether he's up to game shape or not is hard to say, but he definitely looks like Will said with the blocks and low and the way he stuck with Millsap. It looks like he is healthy, like he is comfortable in his body and moving around, and you're not worried about another injury or him playing through an injury right now, which is kind of the best I thought we could hope for, and he'll find his place to fit in as time goes on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, much like a teenage girl, you hope that he's comfortable in his body.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
We should all be so lucky.
Yeah. I thought that he was I was almost expecting him to come back and favor one side of his knee or something, or visibly, as Will mentioned, play a little gingerly, knowing that he's like 80%, so he's got to he can only accelerate at 80%, and it didn't feel that way. And right now he's in the game against the Knicks. He's guarding Aflalo, and he's doing a decent job of it. He's active on the board, and he just got into a wrestling match sort of on a rebound here. So he's very active. He's the junkyard dog that you expect. So definitely all signs are positive right now. Are we still in agreement that he starts against Indiana because of Paul George and he comes off the bench against Detroit because we don't need him in the starting lineup? Where do we stand on that one, Andrew?
To be honest, I think if they play Detroit, they might kind of vacillate a little bit back and forth, maybe bring him off the bench to start the series and try to ramp his minutes up if that series turns out to be not overly difficult. But Yeah, it would be interesting to see if they would bring him right off, start him to face up with Paul George. I think that that's definitely a matchup problem, but it hasn't really phased us that much this year when Paul George has played at the 4
Yeah, and
without him.
and just going back to the Indiana game from Friday, the Raptors won that 111-98. That was the game, Will, that DeMar Carroll didn't play because it was a back-to-back. The Raptors really, without DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry, handled Indiana very, very easily. And the Pacers had been playing somewhat okay, but the ease of which the Raptors manhandled them, Will, was like a little surprising to me. Or were the Pacers kind of taking it easy, knowing that this is a potential playoff matchup?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. The Pacers have just been mostly lifeless for probably about a month. Um, it's just they've had a lot of embarrassing losses, and they've really stumbled into the final stretch of the season. Now they've clinched, which knocked out the Bulls, which is huge. It's a huge sigh of relief. But yeah, man, the Pacers, that's just kind of how they are. They just don't play hard a lot of the time. I thought on Friday they didn't play any perimeter defense at all, and that's why Norm Powell got 19 trips to the free throw line. You got DeLon Wright slashing his way to the hoop for a career high 19 as well. So, I mean, look, the Pacers, that might just be what they are right now. I mean, obviously you would expect them to tighten up for the playoffs, but they've just been a really inconsistent team. So even without Larry and DeRozan, I was a little bit surprised, but at the same time, it kind of fits with how the Pacers are playing right now.
Yeah, I mean, they beat a LeBron-less Cleveland team a couple of nights before that comfortably. So I don't know how much you want to read into that, but that's kind of been their last month and a half. Is that they were coming in with a 3-game winning streak, but overall, as you said, like they're not a team that's like rolling heading into the playoffs. So like, if the Raptors do face them, Andrew, this should be like I expect the Raptors to be heavily favored if they face the Pacers, regardless of like the MVP season that Paul George's having.
Yeah, I think that Paul George has not got nearly enough attention for how great he is this year, and that a big part of that is that the Pacers just kind of blow. Like they're capable of having individual games that are fine or even as much as good, but they're really not a great team. Like if you want to look at it from a team perspective, there's a lot of holes. There's a lot of guys that just don't really bring it, unless they've got a lot of the streaky guys hitting shots. They really struggle to put up a high functioning offense of any kind. So I do not fear the Pacers.
Yeah. It's like a composition of good players who can't play together. Because even Monta Ellis, his game is almost like detached from the 4 other guys on the team. Either he's got his scoring going on his own, but you never see him actually like rack up like a 12 assist game ever or a 10 assist game ever where he's getting everybody involved. It's very much individualistic. So yeah, I think I'm agreeing that this should be a fairly I don't want to say easy, but the potentially easy matchup for the Raptors. Will, any disagreements on that one?
No, I think the most positive sign heading into a matchup with the Pacers is that in 4 games against Toronto this year, Paul George has put up 16 points a game on 30% shooting, and it's not been one player that's sort of locked him down. We saw DeRozan hold him to like 6 of 27 shooting. Mm-hmm. We saw DeMar Carroll lock him down early in the season. He had that. Well, the Pacers destroyed the Raptors that one time. Yeah. That was in like December, I think. And then this most recent matchup, like he was invisible, really, which is weird because he is a very good player and he's obviously their best player, but Paul George just hasn't had a lot of success against us right now.
And even defensively, he wasn't that great. I remember James Johnson, going at Paul George, and like his angles playing him were all wrong. And there was this one play where James Johnson, of all people, got like the most generous continuation call I've seen all season long against Paul George, who was just playing him way too tight. I mean, if you just bother reading the scouting report on James Johnson, like OKC did a couple of weeks ago, and basically didn't come within 10 feet of him the entire game, you'd know that that's not how you defend the guy. And he was checking him really tight up top. It just didn't make sense to me. And it was even called out by the Pacers announcers that George doesn't seem engaged in the game at the time, even though it was a potential playoff matchup. So moving on, I don't know if you guys want to talk about the other games that happened. Atlanta, 95-87, the Raptors lost. We've beaten them like 3 times. Andrew, was there anything left to prove against the Hawks at this point?
I don't think so. I think that the Raptors are looking to sort of run individual sets, and they're trying to figure out lineups. They're trying to emphasize JV's role a little bit more and do things like that. I think they'd like to win games, but you certainly don't see them trying to take their game in the fourth quarter to another level the way they were earlier on this year when they really cared about winning games. It's just kind of like a, well, here goes sort of attitude. Like, I don't think they're particularly upset about it.
Yeah. And we'll go to Will on the next game. It was Charlotte Hornets versus the Raptors. The Raptors won that one 96-90. This was like in the previous podcast, I was like, this might be a statement game because the Hornets had been playing really well. But Will, what I do want to talk about is that there's this video floating on Reddit about Jeremy Lin and how hard he gets hacked compared to other NBA players, and how the refs basically have a bit of a bias against him. Did you catch that one?
I saw the post.
Yeah.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with it. A couple anecdotes doesn't necessarily make a case. But I do know that, so you guys have all noticed that Jeremy Lin's had like 8 different wacky hairstyles this year?
Yeah, many.
So apparently the reason he's done that is so that refs can spot the foul, because he actually does get hacked a lot, mostly because he's like his best attribute to his game is that he can drive to the basket. So I don't know if he's getting unfair whistles or anything like that. I mean, those are the video pointed out some egregious examples and wrote like a 3,000 word open letter to Adam Silver. But I mean, I don't know, Jeremy Lin, whatever. He drives to the hoop. Sometimes it doesn't get called. You know, maybe we should make a similar video with DeMar DeRozan, featuring Matt Devlin's classic no call, contact no call, behind every single one of those. Yeah. So.
All right, but the game itself, Kemba Walker had a horrible game, 4 for 16. It could not hit anything at all. Played like 36 minutes in this game, just completely ineffective. And on the other end, Kyle Lowry was 8 for 16. Played 40 minutes, 21 points. DeMar DeRozan had 26 points. The Raptors obviously went full force on this one and really wanted to win against a hot team, and they did, Andrew.
Yeah, they didn't do what we had talked about earlier, where they're just kind of trying things and seeing how it sticks. Like they played their game, and they put it to them. Yeah,
and Batum was out. It should be noted in this game. So let's moving along. So let's talk about the guy of the week so far, which has just been Norman Powell. He's put up some big numbers. Will mentioned the free throws against who was it against?
Indiana.
Indiana, yeah, and at this point, given how suspect James Johnson has been this season, and by the way, the James Johnson fanboys are just nowhere to be found right now. Like, nobody can actually defend the guy's play at all this season. And I was talking to some buddies, and they pointed out that the guy actually looks a little lazy on defense, and I have to kind of agree with that one, Andrew.
Yeah, it's speaking as a James Johnson fanboy, that's kind of what's made it hard to be loud about it, is that, you know, there are still things he brings to the table, but he has not looked the most engaged during most of the time when he's played. Go ahead.
No, and at this point, given how he's played, given how Norman Powell's played, is there any reason ever to play James Johnson ahead of Norman Powell going forward?
I mean, I think the only time is if you have a matchup where Powell's getting exposed size-wise, and you just don't want to have DeRozan carry the weight of having to guard a bigger small forward, then that's when you kind of look at doing something like that. But the more likely result is, at this point, you're going to have DeMar Carroll eat those minutes. So we're unlikely to see, barring injury, I don't foresee a lot of James Johnson minutes in the playoffs, and that's kind of fair.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think there's any complaints this time around that he shouldn't be playing. The fact that we're not complaining about him playing anymore means probably that last year when we called for him to play a lot was an honest assessment, because we weren't really fanboys last year. I think there was a genuine basketball reason why he should have played more, and this year there just isn't. And I don't know. It's sad to see how far his stock has fallen over the last year or so.
Well, like, his stock has fallen, his play has been less than it was a year ago, but there's also much more depth at that position, or the positions where he would play, than there was a year ago as well. So it's both things contributing.
And regarding Norman Powell, man, like one thing that sticks out for me with him is that when rookies come in, the good ones always seem to have like some of those like big games in year one. Like remember when Tim Duncan came in the league? Not comparing Norman Powell to Tim Duncan, but just saying, like, when these big rookies come in, they always seem to have like a 30-point game, like a 28-point game against NBA, like obviously against top tier teams, and Norman Powell seems to do that. He has those big games that you see stars generally have in their rookie years. Like Terrence Ross, for example, like didn't really have that in his rookie year. He always struggled to score, but this guy has that package where it's a question of like I don't know what the question is, man. I just know that the fact that he's having big games in his rookie year speaks really well for his future, because generally players who have big games in rookie years tend to blow up later on. Yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, man. Look, Norm, I think the best part of Norm is right now is he's got a lot of confidence. So he's very decisive. You're seeing him grab the rebound and push on the break, even when there's like one or two defenders in front of him, even if he doesn't have the numbers advantage. He finds a way to slither to the basket on those transition, and that's literally where he got 12 of those free throws against Indiana. It was just their defense was lazy getting back, and he pushed it all the way. He's also got like sneaky long arms, so I think opponents like misjudge what it would take to block him. And he finishes well in transition. We've seen him throw down a couple dunks. It's just the decisiveness is really, really big, and he plays with a lot of energy and confidence, which is it's nice to see that from the Raptors wings, because when you really think about it, neither DeRozan or Terrence Ross can push it in transition, and they almost never do. And James Johnson, I guess, never plays. Carroll, you're going to see a lot of transition stuff from Carroll, but before that, it was just literally Norman Powell and Kyle Lowry, the only two people that could push the tempo, and it's nice to have like a change of pace guard.
Norman Powell is not playing right now. The Raptors are up only 84-81 after Terrence Ross just hit a three. I realize that this podcast is being heard the next day, so live commentary is completely useless. But just checking in, guys. Raptors up 3 late in New York. Andrew, you were about to say about Norman Powell.
Yeah, it just seems like he's not afraid of the moment. That's kind of what's to go to what you were saying about some rookies who have big games. I think the reason for that is if you're a guy who's not afraid to step up there and like Will said, he has full confidence to play and he's making smart decisions. And the other thing is, as a rookie, especially as what's viewed as a more undersized rookie than he is, guys play off him. Like that, the help defense is coming from Powell's guy a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. They're not playing right up on him. They're not taking him as seriously as they should, and there's a lack of scouting reports on him as well, as detailed as it would be on others. So I think he's really taking advantage of the fact that guys are playing off of him. He's getting a lot of open shots, and like that makes sense. Like if you're going to leave someone open, he's probably the guy the teams are deciding to play off of, but he's punishing them for that, and like that's great.
Yeah, just one more thing on Norman Powell. I mean, the most encouraging sign with it is that over the last 12, 13 games, Norman Powell is shooting 50% on open catch and shoot threes. And he's had a lot of them. He's attempting 4 a game because defenses, like Andrew is saying, keep leaving him in the corner to send help on drives. But that's his role, man. He's just got to knock those down, and that's why it's super encouraging, especially since he's had a couple of slow first halves, only to come out much stronger in the second half. Not to compare the two players because they're different types of players, but if Terrence Ross comes out in the first half and he's 1 of 6, he's just kind of disappears for the rest of the game. Whereas Norman Powell, he's completely unfazed. He will come back out and he knows that if this is the shot that the offense requires me to take, I will take that shot. Or if there's an opportunity here to drive to the basket, I will do that. It's just nice.
Hey, Will, you got to put $100. Or no, what am I going to say? $10,000 on this bet. Who's going to be an all-star in this league? Terrence Ross or Norman Powell?
Oh, man. Terrence Ross.
Wow. Andrew, what do you think?
If we're contextualizing it as who is going to be an all-star, I have an easier, I really struggle to see how Powell could be the feature guard on a team, whereas you could hypothetically see where Ross could make his way into that, just, I guess, the skill set. But, yeah, I don't think either one of these guys is going to be an all-star, but I guess Ross.
All right, okay. All right, so speaking of, Will mentioned that Powell is a guy that doesn't seem to get fazed by the occasion. And given the Raptors' propensity to kind of fade in the playoffs of the last couple of years and get a little choked up, who do you guys think is the one Raptor that just the playoffs being here will not affect them mentally at all, and they'll treat them as just another game and will not have the occasion affect their play? Let's start with Andrew on this one.
I mean, if the question is who gives less of a shit about it, I think James Johnson is just going to treat it the same way.
No, I'm talking about like an actual player who plays.
No, I know.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Yeah, look, I don't
Anthony
think
Bennett, because he's not
Yeah,
here
exactly.
anymore.
Yeah. It's going to be the same Anthony Bennett. I think Larry is not going to be phased or overthink things in the ways maybe he has in the past, and I don't even really think he necessarily has done in the past. I think they just, like last year, they were just shut down. But yeah, I am in no way concerned about Larry not being able to step up to the moment.
Yeah, Will?
I got Bismack Biyombo.
Yeah.
There's no way, like, when games slow down and when games get more intense, Bismack Biyombo just plays the same. In fact, that plays right into Bismack's game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good
pick, yeah.
I mean, there's gonna be stretches. Like, I can foresee the Raptors coming out slow one game. You know how the bench goes, how the starters go. You know, Skola's definitely gonna be in the starting lineup. They might give up like a 10-point lead. Everyone's freaking out. The square is silent, and then all of a sudden Bismack comes in the game, records this giant block. It spikes a fast break. Norman Powell goes the other way for a dunk. That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I think Bismack is great because his game is completely unfazed. He's just all energy all the time.
Yeah, I was gonna go with Luis Scola just because he's a veteran, and I think he's got the mental capacity to kind of like he's been in big games before, and I think he's one of those guys who will respond to the occasion well.
What is he gonna do though?
Well, he's gonna start is what he's gonna do. And on the other side, on the flip side, the guy who might be most affected by the occasion, I was going with Patrick Patterson, because he's such a confident, sensitive guy that if he even has like just one bad game, he might just do way too much self-reflection, and it might affect him for the rest of the postseason. And it has happened to him in the past, so he's the guy that I'm most worried about heading into the playoffs. As I really hope that he has a good first half of Game 1. So that he carries it forward. What do you guys think of that, Andrew?
I'd weigh back and forth between, if things start going south, DeMar maybe trying to do too much, or like JV can get there too. Like JV can look over to the bench, being afraid to get pulled out of a game if he's not playing well in the fourth quarter or something like that. I think he's come a long way in that sense, but. Yeah, I think if he's not playing well, he's the one of the starters that is most concerned about how that contributes to and defines his role moving forward on the team.
Yeah. Score check, 86-84 Toronto with about 2 minutes and 12 seconds left there. It's happening, guys. We might just tie the series with the Knicks here. But hey, Josh Lewenberg tweeted out a very, very interesting tweet. And he said the Raptors have won the season series against every other playoff team in the East, which I thought was just an amazing feat. Not an amazing feat, but a significant feat that they were able to play such well against playoff opposition. And their record against above 500 teams this year has been just nothing short of phenomenal in either conference.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's crazy. The Raptors have wins against OKC, have wins against the Spurs. Both the Warriors games came down in the last minute. And they had those two amazing games against the Cavaliers. Lowry was instrumental in both of them, including the second one where he hit the game winner. I mean, the only team that's consistently given the Raptors trouble is the Bulls. And we can finally say this now, but the Bulls are eliminated because the Pacers... literally, everyone else is like, oh, we're fine if the Bulls make the playoffs. LeBron's like, I'm fine with eliminating the Bulls from the playoffs for the sixth time in 7 years or something like that. Yeah, man, there's no possibility of the Raptors playing the Bulls now. It's great.
Rejoice.
Just the Raptors match up well with a lot of the Eastern Conference. Like, say for Cleveland, it's very hard for other teams to sort of impose their style upon the Raptors. And the Raptors are deep enough, especially with Carroll coming back now. They're versatile enough to play different kinds of styles. They can play the slow game. They can go small. They can play up. Stay big, things like that. Like, it's good. And there's not a team in the East right now that has enough defensive star power to stop both Lowry and DeRozan at the same time.
Yeah. And you mentioned the Spurs game there. Like, one guy that's been coming on really strong, especially since the mask has gotten on, is Corey Joseph. He's had like 4 stellar games, like 8 for 15 against the Spurs, 4 for 6 against Charlotte, 3 for 6 against Atlanta, 6 for 6 against the Pacers. A guy who had his shooting problems, in March and April, but as the playoffs are approaching, Andrew, he's definitely trending upwards.
Yeah, I think that's the case with pretty well all the guys who you were looking to see if they could prove that to you down the stretch have kind of stepped up and done that. I guess with the exception of James Johnson, who's kind of irrelevant now, but but like Joseph's been great down the stretch. Valanciunas has been really, really good down these last few games. Like there's the guys that you need to step up and play a role, and who really take the depth to the next level and make it really, really difficult for teams to do anything against the Raptors. They've all been really good down the stretch. Powell as well. That the Raptors have separated themselves as second place in the East for a reason, and I think that it's going to be very difficult for anyone, save Cleveland, to do something significant against them.
Yeah. Yeah, and overall, like, to Will's point, like this, like these 52, 53 wins that we've racked up here, I mean, they feel like 53 wins. It's not like we're beating up on a weak conference, or we're taking advantage of like bad teams. Like we're beating good teams, and we're beating them sometimes convincingly, and sometimes we're pulling off games in tight fourth quarters. Like this feels like I feel proud of hanging up this Atlantic Division banner, is what I'm trying to get at.
Oh wow, really?
I think so. I think definitely more so than years past.
It was like proud, like you're just gonna post something generically impressive that your kid did on Facebook. Proud, or proud as in like I'm gonna tell people about this. I'm gonna maybe well up a little bit in the corner of my eye when that was risen. Like, what are you talking about?
Okay, let me tell you what I'm not talking about. Remember last year's podcast when you won the Atlantic Division? You compared it to like going in grade 5, how you went to high school in school, and somebody gave you a participation ribbon. I think those were the exact words in one of our podcasts last year. This does not that. This actually feels like a bit of an accomplishment. I realize that the Atlantic is weak, but if you look at, we're second in the conference. It's not like we're just the best of the Atlantic. Other than Cleveland, it's us, guys.
We should hang a second
you're
seed
more
banner.
about hanging your hat on just the accomplishment in the Eastern Conference in general, the win total number, not the fact that it's the Atlantic Conference victory.
Unless we can get a second place in the conference banner up, I'd settle for the Atlantic Division banner. All right. Okay.
Well, look, they already have space out, man. The last one went to a Raptors game, which was, I think, like an early March game against the Nets. There's already a space, like, beside the other two.
Yeah.
I think they've already preemptively assumed that they were going to win the Atlantic.
If we can put a Bon Jovi banner up there, we can make up one for the second in the Eastern Conference. Go nuts.
If there's no space, we can always double park.
Yeah.
All right. So speaking of our early Atlantic Division banners, Brian Colangelo is back in the league, and hashtag trust the process is over. The Philadelphia 76ers have done a complete 180 in my view of what their plan was and what their future is. Andrew, as being a purveyor of basketball analysis of the highest order, what did you make of the Sixers' decision to go with former Raptor GM, two-time Executive of the Year, and son of their president of basketball operations, Brian Colangelo?
That's the key bit right there at the end, is this idea that you've gone, like, it's gone from the process to nepotism. Like, it's like look, the Colangelo has had this job before, and he's done some things that vary from okay to smart but unsuccessful to really good to really stupid. I think that it speaks volumes that he was out of the league for 3 full years with his father being as big of a looming figure in the NBA and USA basketball as he was. Like that, I think teams by and large had decided that they had had enough of Brian Colangelo and didn't necessarily think that he was the person to take them to where they needed to go in the new NBA. And like you can see some small things that he did right in the last few years, but like the end of his legacy is the trade for Rudy Gay and the Landry Fields contract, and like the drafting was hit and miss. But
so what's the future for the Philadelphia 76ers here, man? Are they trading all their assets this summer?
Well, look, here's the thing that is interesting about this is that if they get the first and the fourth pick this year, then it doesn't they've got a lot to build with. Like that's Sam Hinkie's process can still kind of pan out for them. It's going to come down to how they do in the lottery. Mm-hmm. So now if he gets if they don't get the Lakers pick and they draft third, then I would look for them to try to. I think they're going to try to make some moves to become something closer to mediocre quickly, and I don't know why that's helpful, but like things aren't going to get better in Philadelphia, I don't think, barring them winning the lottery.
Yeah, I just want to say that I didn't think anybody could usurp Doc Rivers for Father of the Year in the NBA circles, but congrats to Jerry, man. Congrats to Jerry. Seriously, so Sixers fans are irate. I would say, at least the ones on Twitter. It's sort of an insular group, but they love the process. They love Sam Hinkie, and they feel backstabbed, and they really should feel backstabbed. But I mean, look at Sam Hinkie, man. What in 3 years of the process, I feel like he doesn't have one decent player to show for it, and that's. I mean, I get that Joel Embiid's gonna get healthy one day, maybe, and Dario Saric will come over eventually, maybe, and be decent, but you can't be this bad for 3 years with no prospect of getting better and have no like signature player to even hold up. So yeah, but Brian Colangelo, you know what I'm really excited about? So the Sixers have like probably like 20, yeah, they have like $20 million committed, which means they have like $70 million in cap room. Can you just imagine Brian Colangelo with the impetus to improve the team and also holding $70 million in his hand?
Yeah.
He is going to... Jarrett Jack, you're getting a contract again?
Yeah.
Hito Turkoglu's a free agent?
Yeah, he's...
Bargnani's a free agent? Man, he's going to sign Harrison Barnes. He's going to be the guy.
Yeah. Landry Fields is available.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Seriously, we forget. I think the one thing that I saw on Twitter a lot was like, well, you know, the Raptors, he should get a lot of success, credit for what the Raptors are doing right now. He's the one that brought Lowry, DeRozan, and Dwayne Casey here, and Jonas and Terrence Ross. And it's just like, sure, that's if you want to look at the most simplistic case, that's what happened. But you have to realize that like Kyle Lowry was like the B option to option A, which was we sign Landry Fields for no reason. And then we lure Steve Nash here with like a 4-year, $48 million contract, which he turned down. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And the Rudy Gay trade. Oh my. Yeah. All of it. I'm happy he's back.
Okay. So Raptors score check. Jonas just scored 91-88 with 33 seconds left. Yeah. Again, I realize it's
riveting radio for people who will all know the final score.
Yeah, Brian Colangelo, well, I'm glad he's back in. The official word from the Sixers is that he was the best available candidate for the position, and that sources close to BC say that he did not really want the job, and he much preferred the Nets opening, but that went to Sean Marks, I think, at the end, got it. And he's reluctantly taking it on. You know, from his perspective, I can probably see why he's reluctantly taking it on. But, you know, like he's been out of the league for quite some time now, and it doesn't look like any team was like willing to really take him seriously as a GM. So, you know, nepotism works. It's good.
Is it? Like,
yeah.
I don't think the Sixers' job is a bad GM job. Like, I think that's a good job.
No. I'm saying he wanted the Nets GM job because he could prove that he's not in the league because of his father.
Okay, but he is. So, yeah.
But now he is. But
not available to him.
Okay.
I would like to prove that I can... Yeah, never.
You know what I'm talking about.
I wish he was transparent about it. I wish at the press conference he just like gave Jerry a big hug and said, "Thank you, Dad."
No. Thank you, Daddy.
Yeah, exactly. Drop the daddy. The one reprieve for Sixers fans is that like Colangelo's draft record is pretty solid. Yeah. So they have like 1,000 picks. If he holds on to those picks, maybe he does something good with them.
Yeah. Like I want Jerry Colangelo to be at the press conference with a mug saying "World's #1 Dad." All right.
Oh,
okay.
Poor Sam Hinkie.
So we got a few more topics here, but at this point we are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Andrew is going to host the Twitter question segment. See you right after these messages from Goldfinger Personal Injury Law, the best lawyer in Toronto.
Get Goldfinger today.
Here's the scenario. You've been injured in a serious accident. The doctor says your recovery could take months, maybe even years, yet your insurance company is denying your claim every step of the way. If something like this happens to you, call me, Brian Goldfinger of Goldfinger Personal Injury Law. We have offices in Toronto, London, Peterborough, and now Kitchener-Waterloo. Visit goldfingerlaw.com and get us working for you.
Get Goldfinger today.
All right, welcome back to the Raptors Weekly Podcast. We are going to go to Twitter to read some of your insightful and delightful questions for us to discuss here. First, we're going to go to Raheel was here, who asked us, Pacers or Pistons is favorable matchup for the Raps.
Did we answer this one?
It's sort of like to be honest with you, we basically answered all the questions in some form or another, but well, no, I think we discussed both kind of. I don't think we said which one we preferred more directly.
All right.
Are we all in agreement that it's the Pacers?
I think so. I mean,
Yeah, but like marginally. Like
yeah. Actually, Andrew, you're the host, man. I don't know.
yeah, sure. So like I think that the Pistons have a higher hypothetical ceiling. I don't think that despite every urging from SVG that they're going to get, that they've shown any ability to get there with anything remotely close to consistency. So yeah, what I'm happier is I think that the Pistons can do more to push Cleveland, though they're not going to be Cleveland, but that's the matchup you're more interested in seeing Cleveland have to fight through as far as it making them change the way they play stylistically. So I'd rather see us play the Pacers if only for that.
Yeah, I mean, also, the Pistons theoretically have a couple points where they can really hurt the Raptors. Like, Tobias Harris playing at power forward is going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem for Luis Scola. And you'd much rather face someone like Lavoy Allen or, I don't know, who else they got out there. Miles Turner, I guess he plays 5. Jordan Hill, like, they rarely go to the Paul George at power forward lineup. And even if they do, the Raptors have enough players wing players to match up with that. And with the Pacers, or with the Pistons, you got someone like Reggie Jackson, who was just absolutely scorching in the win against the Wizards on Friday that clinched them their playoff spot. The Reggie Jackson is hard to handle. He's a guard that can really get into the paint, and it's going to put a lot of pressure on Lowry to guard him all the time. Yeah, you just prefer the Pacers, who are also stumbling into the playoffs, as we've talked about.
And the thing about the Pacers putting George at the 4 to me is like in a vacuum, Paul George at the 4 is a devastating matchup. But the problem for the Pacers is that when they do that, it means they have like C.J. Miles or Rodney Stuckey or someone like that playing the 3. So it's really not that hard to just adjust who you're playing and compensate by just guarding whoever's playing that small forward spot with your lesser players to pick up that gap.
Yeah, I'm going to change my vote on this one. I mean, I think couple of pods ago, I said I'm kind of scared of Paul George getting superstar calls in the postseason, and that might come back to kill us. But having watched the Pacers and having watched Detroit over the last 2 weeks or so, like I think I would rather play the Pacers because like Markieff Morris, Tobias Harris, Andre Drummond, Reggie Jackson, they're all capable of having very, very strong games against us. And even though we match up well individually against them, I still fear that they have too much talent. The guy that kind of makes me nervous is is Baines off the bench. He's one of those
Aaron Baines.
I know, he comes in and
Aaron Baines makes you nervous.
He does, man, because I can totally see him
Did you have a troubling experience at some point in time with someone who looked like Aaron Baines? Like, did a guy that looked like that jump you in college, and that's where this comes from?
He has good games. He has good games against us. He's a good pick and roll player. And I've been scarred by guys like Mickey Moore or Mikey Moore from way back when, who were nobodies and had massive series against us. So don't laugh at Aaron Baines. Did anybody say Otto Porter Jr. last year would have a huge series? And he ended up having one of the biggest impacts of the series. It's always these low-key guys that end up burning the Raptors. And I'm going to pick Aaron Baines as a low-key guy who has a huge potential to burn the Raptors just because he's such a good finisher and a strong pick-and-roll player against our defense. I don't know. That's what I'm going with. So I'd say yes. I'd rather face the Pacers.
All right. Well then, dear Mr. LeBron James, please, can you take care of the terrifying Aaron Baines for us, so we don't have to match up with him potentially later?
You know what I'm talking. Mickey Moore, man. Old Raptor fans know who Mikey Moore is.
Mikey Moore does not cause me sleep at night. All right, we're gonna move on. So at Strict66, look, someone with a ridiculous Twitter name asked us, how deep do y'all think the Raptors are gonna go? So, Will, how deep do you think the Raptors are going to go?
Well, I mean, I tweeted out at halftime from the Raptors public account that I was watching Spurs Warriors to scout for the finals. So, no, I'm kidding. I think the Raptors make it to the Eastern Conference Finals and then take one game off Cleveland.
I'm going to answer this in a different way. I'm more like, is a first round win enough to be qualified as a successful season? Because at the start of the year, I think we all would have taken that. But given how well the team has played this season, I'm getting a little greedy, and I've set the ceiling a little higher in that I don't think a first-round win is enough. In this East, given how many wins we've racked up, and we're about to win the next game, by the way, 92-88, 17 seconds left, I expect the Raptors to at least win 2 playoff rounds at this point. Anything less would be a bit of a disappointment. So I'm going to say 2 playoff rounds and they take a game off Cleveland. I think I'm gonna agree with Will on that one in a different sort of way.
All right, yeah, I think we got to make it pretty much a clean sweep there and say that I agree with you guys. I think at the start of the season it was, or even now, I think the idea like the first round win isn't like that's the goal for the season. That's the necessity for the season.
Yeah.
It's the panic button will be hit repeatedly if this does not happen, and that's only more so true now when the Raptors have clearly separated themselves from the rest of the Eastern Conference. So after you have a big enough sample that they had with this regular season, proving that they are better than those other teams, I think that if one of those other teams is able to usurp you, barring some sort of major injury, then the season has been a disappointment because you've demonstrated you're better than them.
Yeah.
So if you lose, it's a reflection that you didn't play to your full potential. They haven't done that with Cleveland. Cleveland has proven that they are a force to be reckoned with, and until anyone in the Eastern Conference can beat LeBron James in a playoff series, I think that you have to assume that just to hold your own is going to be the goal, and if you can do anything more than that, then hurrah. But yeah, I think that's Eastern Conference. Just have a good showing against Cleveland would be the goal. All right, Ronald Wilson of @Gargon asks us: Masai has done a really nice job this year. Will he get consideration for Executive of the Year? Zarar, you want to tackle that one first?
I don't know really what qualifies, like what they look at when they go Executive of the Year. Yeah, why not? I think his signing of Bismack Biyombo and Corey Joseph on the cheap, now that we look back on it, has been pretty good. Him not firing Dwayne Casey has to be considered a transaction as well. So I think he gets A+ on that one, given how the season has gone forward. DeMarre Carroll is probably the only blemish on his cap, and that's not even a blemish. The guy was just injured. So if you put those together and you look at the Raptors season, 55 wins, I don't think anybody expected that of him. We're talking about like giving Dwayne Casey Coach of the Year. I don't see why it's unreasonable to expect Masai Ujiri to win Executive of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, Executive of the Year is super strange because teams are never built in one year unless you're talking about like Pat Riley bringing the big three together in Miami, and even that took years. Like, you got to remember he traded for Jermaine O'Neal just so that the contract would expire at the exact same time. Like, teams are not built in a year, so it's like weird to take snapshots of like what happened in this last calendar year that ex-GM deserves the award. So I think Masai's done a lot of great work, but he doesn't have the one signature move that is going to have someone like R.C. Buford, who's signed LaMarcus Aldridge and then found a way to re-sign Kawhi, Danny Green, David West, all those dudes, Tim Duncan, right? Like, that's a splashier offseason. Or even like the Warriors. I don't even mind giving it to the Warriors, even though they made like literally no moves in the summer except for draft Kevon Looney. It's just a recognition of those teams and how they got built over the years. I guess they did re-sign Draymond, but yeah, I mean, it also sucks that, like you said, DeMarre Carroll, his biggest acquisition, was injured for half the year. But Masai's done a great job, man. The Gravis Vasquez trade, by the way, that was an amazing trade. We got a first-round pick, a second-round pick, and cap room to sign Corey Joseph.
Yeah, it seems like the NBA media group that votes on a lot of these awards has sort of decided as a whole what the characteristics are going to be for a lot of the other awards that are sort of vague. Like, the Coach of the Year typically kind of goes to, either the team that wins an astronomical amount of games, or the coach that seems to have done, more often than not, the coach that did the most with the least. The Sixth Man of the Year just typically goes to whichever bench scorer puts up the most points per game. Executive of the Year seems like something that I don't think the group of people who vote on this award have all kind of decided that they have an agreed upon sort of criteria for it. I think we can all agree here that Masai did a great job, but I think kind of what I'm hearing from us is that none of us really know how to actually decide who the Executive of the Year is, and that it's hard to make it a yearly award.
No.
Zora, you had a question you wanted to branch off from.
Yeah, but so I just want to say the Raptor game just went final. They beat the Knicks, and Carmelo Anthony couldn't be happier. He just looks elated at the final. He's like high-fiving everybody. I think he's very excited to get his summer vacation started. So good on Carmelo.
He's happy to give the Raptors a good pick.
You guys heard about the Knicks being interested in Masai rumors? Did you guys catch a whiff of that one?
Yeah.
Like, what would the Knicks have to say to Masai for him to say, "Yep, I'm out. Let's go to New York"?
A part of it would be like, you can have like, he already has their draft pick. Why does he need that job? Like, that's he's taken all of their nice things over the last few years. why would he now go to live in the house that he's been robbing?
But exactly. So what would the Knicks have to say? Like, what would they have to offer this guy for him to say, yeah, I'm coming over?
It's probably just money.
Yeah, here's all of the monies, and the Knicks have this whole idea that you can pitch someone on New York and you make something big in New York, but it seems like Masai is a guy that's really interested in building a culture and a foundation and building a winning team. And that's something that he hasn't finished yet, and he would have to completely start over in New York with very little to work with. So why, or not, there's not nothing to work with there, but it's like, it's going to be at least a few years. So I don't know what the job incentive would be for him. I think that people who think that might happen is just this idea that if you're a Knicks fan, you think the Knicks matter more than other places, and ergo someone would take that job.
Yeah. I don't see how anybody would want to work with a guy like James Dolan, who has been known to interfere in GM matters all the time. Historically, has been just a terrible owner. Nobody likes him. Doesn't get along with his GMs. Has been known to dictate what happens on the court. I don't see Masai ever overcoming that hurdle of working with a guy like James Dolan. I think he might be the biggest obstacle between him ending up in New York, or any decent GM ending up in New York.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think James Dolan was like, listen, we need a new GM. Phil Jackson is going to bolt for Los Angeles. Who can we bring in? We probably need to rebuild. We probably need to trade Melo. Who do we know that's really good at trading Melo?
It's a smart idea for them. I
it'd be
don't
great
know why Masai would do that. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, plus Masai has roots here, man. All the work that he's done with Giants of Africa, MLSC has really supported him on that. He's got very competitive salary, and I'm sure with the way that he's built the Raptors to where they are right now, the Raptors they have deep pockets as well, So
I think they'd have to offer him part ownership. Here's 10% ownership of the Knicks, because it's very hard to become an NBA
no one's
owner.
going to offer that much.
Well, I'm just saying that's what it would take.
Let's put a close to the talk of whether or not we think that, or about Masai going to the Knicks by asking you guys this question, which I think sums up whether or not it's a real question. Do you think it's more likely that Masai Ujiri is the GM of the Knicks within the next 16 months, or that Isaiah Thomas is the GM of the Knicks in the next 16 months?
Oh man, of those two, I would say Masai Ujiri, because I don't think Isaiah Thomas is being trusted with the Knicks. I think he has a restraining order against the Knicks front office based on his previous actions.
Dude, he's running the WNBA team.
I just don't see it, man. I don't think Isaiah Thomas.
Either of them.
Yeah, I don't think either. But if I had to pick one who's more likely, I'd say Ujiri, just because of Isaiah Thomas's behavior, beyond the front office.
All right.
Mm.
All right. Next question comes from Toby Agia at another Twitter handle that we're not even going to try to pronounce. He asks us, would you fire Casey with a first round exit? He's really hopeful that doesn't happen, but he wants to know, would you?
Yeah, for sure. No doubt about it. I think you have to.
Yeah,
I think that's the reason he hasn't been extended yet.
Yeah, I mean, look, if in the first round, if they lose in the first round, they would have lost to either Indiana or Detroit. And given the considerable talent advantage that the Raptors have, there's no reasonable way why the Raptors should lose to either of those teams in the first round. And at that point, the impetus is on the Raptors to do something, right? And as much as continuity has been cute and brought to this point, if you consistently fail in the playoffs, you got to change something. And Casey's contract is not guaranteed for next year.
Yeah,
he'd be gone.
Sure.
Are both kind of questions we sort of already answered. Just, if we get the Pacers, should Carroll start a power forward and Powell at the 3?
Why would you do that? The Pacers play 2 bigs and Paul George at 3.
Yeah,
so there's no reason to downsize.
I'd say you got to start Carroll on Paul George 100%. I think that's why you paid him the big money. And if he appears to be healthy, which he appears to be, I think you have to go with it. And Norman Powell is one of those guys that, you just plug him in anywhere and he'll kind of produce. Doesn't need to be starter or bench. And same can be said for DeMario Carroll too. But I just think this is the matchup. You paid this guy the money he gets paid for. So why not?
Yeah, I think if DeMario Carroll is ready to play the full minutes, you have him start. But you have him start at the 3. You're not going to start him at the 4 and change up the starting lineup. I think the Raptors are probably going to roll with what they've been doing all season. And Indiana playing 2 bigs more often than you think they do makes it convenient for us to do that, because Scola hasn't been tremendous as far as the starters go all the time down the stretch. But yeah, I agree with Will that I think they keep doing what they've been doing, and if Carroll's ready for the minutes, which I think it looks like he's going to be, then he takes over that role from Powell, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And then the last question here comes from Zoltan Tar, at Zoltan Tar, who asks, which is the more difficult assignment? Drummond at center for Jonas and Biombo, or Paul George at swingman for Carroll and co? Will, you want to go ahead first?
Well, I mean, okay, so with the Drummond thing, the worst case scenario, you start Hackett Drummond, which is not that bad considering he's like a 40% free throw shooter. He could probably get him off the floor. Stan Van Gundy's shown a pretty strong willingness to take him off the court, so that's that. But in terms of in the absence of that, I would say the Paul George matchup, I just gotta say, like, he's averaged 16 points a game on 30% of shooting against the Raptors in 4 games this season, and each one of those, the Raptors wing defenders has shut down Paul George at some point. Even Norm Powell did a pretty good job against Paul George, so I don't know, man. It's weird because the big wing has been a huge thorn in the Raptors' side for so long, but that's exactly what each of the last couple off seasons are focused on, is just bringing some big wings. And you factor in things like DeRozan's improvement defensively, especially when he's engaged. Yeah, I mean, I guess Paul George is the easier matchup, which is kind of weird to say.
Yeah, I got some stats for this one, guys. JV versus Drummond, head-to-head matchup. JV's averaging 15 points and 9 rebounds on 62% shooting, with Drummond averaging 12 points and 11 rebounds on 50% shooting. And obviously, JV's a much better free throw shooter.
Free throw.
I'd say this is the easier matchup on both sides, because I think JV has shown that he can handle big men who aren't necessarily the most mobile. Yeah, Drummond is a very good defender, and he's a big guy who's physical. But I think JV is more comfortable with those guys than guys like Brook Lopez or somebody who can kind of move around a little bit and has a few moves there. I'd say that's the easier matchup. I think Paul George, you still have he has the ability to go off, and I don't think Drummond can single-handedly win you the game, but Paul George can. So I'd go with Paul George being the more difficult one.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I think that Drummond can put up ghastly numbers, and he can really abuse, especially when he's playing against smaller guys, which happens a lot, and is the reason why a lot of guys like DeAndre and Andre Drummond can put up these huge, massive games sometimes. But on top of that, the offense in Detroit doesn't revolve around Andre Drummond all the time. Like, I think until he becomes a lot better at kicking the ball out and finding guys and has more partners to run the pick and roll with, though Reggie Jackson can do it really, really well sometimes, is that you're not going to have a high-functioning offense that revolves around a big like Andre Drummond. There's no team that does that in the league right now that has an unstoppable offense that revolves around a guy like that. So yeah. I think that George has a much higher ceiling as far as being able to take over a game. Though, as Will said, I am also confident in our ability to kind of guard Paul George, just because the pieces around Paul George this year are just not good enough. You can't have a team where one person just carries the weight of that team anymore, arguably, unless you're LeBron James, who still needs shooters. So,
and I want to add that I'm pretty sure Andre Drummond's first playoff appearance,
yes.
I think he might be a liability in the fourth quarter. I think he might become unplayable if you his free throw shooting makes him somewhat unplayable in tight games. So he might not even be a factor down the stretch.
Possible. Yeah.
True.
All right.
True. The Raptors have an experience advantage for once.
Well, Andrew, thank you for hosting the Twitter questions part of this podcast. You've done a wonderful job. You're like the Norman Powell of this podcast.
Oh, gosh.
All right. So I think with that, we're going to wrap things up. Listener, thank you for tuning in to Raptors Weekly. Again, as a reminder, make sure you check out Will and Blake's Raptors Weekly Extra podcast, which airs on Friday. You guys aren't renaming that thing to something more normal, is there?
No, I think we're going to stick with it, the one that we hate. But, hey, listen to that one. We're going to be previewing the playoffs for real. Like, we're going to go position by position. We're going to tell you about Stanley Johnson's tendencies to go to his left hand, things like this. It'll be all in that podcast, all playoffs.
And make sure you cover Aaron Baines.
Sure, we'll definitely cover Aaron Baines. He's decent. He's decent.
Old Raptor fans know what unknown role players can do in the playoffs to us. I mean, I don't think you have to look past, just Otto Porter Jr. That's all you need to know. Again, let me just remind the listener that they should rate us on iTunes and Stitcher. And if you want to support Raptors Republic, check out patreon.com/Raptors Republic. Big thanks to our sponsor, Goldfinger Personal Injury Law. That's goldfingerlaw.com. They've been a sponsor all season long. Thank you for your support. Listener, most of all, thanks to you for listening in every Monday for Raptors Weekly. We'll see you again next week when the playoffs will be here. Bye-bye.